Welcome to the Diamond.
Diamond, Diamond.
A precious gem of the most valuable kind. When pure, it is clear.
Diamond, Diamond.
A family name bringing traditions of love, hard work, and moral values.
This is the Diamond Education Podcast with my mom and dad, Johnny and Kelly England.
This is part one of our conversation with Rob Wood, the Fatherhood Ninja. We had such a great time talking with him that we split this into 2 episodes. This week we'll be discussing fatherhood in general and its benefits on children in our society. Next week we'll discuss homeschool and how fatherhood plays an important role in that form of education. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome to the Diamond Education Podcast with John and Kelly England, your host. We're here to help you find the most valuable education for your children.
We're excited to have Rob Wood on with us. He is the Fatherhood Ninja. Rob Wood is a fatherhood advocate. He tweets about the blessings of homeschooling, fatherhood, foster care, and other family-related topics. Rob is the founder of Brotherhood of Valor, a group for men helping them to overcome their challenges and find meaning in their life. He is also the owner of Bluefin Financial Company. Rob is the father of 3 children and lives in Arkansas. And we are so excited to have you on our podcast, Rob. Welcome.
Hey, thank you all so much. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to jump right into it. Your Twitter handle is the Fatherhood Ninja. And yes. So why is fatherhood so important to you? And maybe talk about the genesis of that name, Fatherhood Ninja.
Yeah. So Fatherhood Ninja, I have a background in martial arts. And so Fatherhood Ninja just kind of fit my scheme of life and the things that I do. Even to this day, I still interact with that with my kiddo. My 14-year-old son's in martial arts. So yeah, Fatherhood Ninja just made sense to me. But yeah, fatherhood in general, I have noticed over the last 20 years specifically a detrimental decline in the value of fatherhood that our culture has seemed to just bring down the importance of fatherhood. And I think what really sparked my heart, especially from a Twitter standpoint, to start tweeting on Twitter was just the statistics that we see in children with fatherless in fatherless homes. So, 63% of youth suicides, 90% of youth homelessness, youth runaways come from fatherless homes. 85% of youth behavioral disorders come from fatherless homes. We see a lot of around like 80% of rapists come from fatherless homes. 71% of high school dropouts, 75% of youth patients and chemical abuse centers, 85% of youth in prison, and the stats go on and on. That really bothers me deeply in my convictions. But it's just really disturbing, actually, when you sit back and think these are real children with real souls, real personalities, real life. These aren't just numbers. And so, about a year and a half ago, and I've always been engaged, and we've been engaged in foster care for many years. And I've been engaged specifically in young college-age men over the last 20 years. I've done some ministry work. One thing I noticed very quickly, even when I moved to Northwest Arkansas 10 years ago, is that young men are struggling deeply. And most of them, not all of them, but most of them have fatherhood issues. They have they either didn't have a dad or their dads just were not active or engaged in their lives, didn't teach them anything. So I think the fatherless problem is bigger than just no dad is present. We even have dads that are present that are working hard. I don't doubt that a lot of these dads are working hard, but they just don't teach their sons anything.
Yeah.
And their daughters anything. They're just not engaged. They're not involved. And so this has been on my heart for 10, 15 years. And of course, when I had my first child, it was a son. I specifically like to engage men, but I know this deeply affects females as well.
Yeah.
Stats on females is troubling when dad's not involved in their lives. And so my first child was a boy. And so I made a promise to myself when he was born that, man, I'm not only am I going to be a dad that provides and loves and serves his family, but man, I want to be involved in his life and highly engaged in what he is doing. Now, I do that to a fault. It annoys him at times and he gets frustrated.
I think that's just the truth of having teenagers, right? It's just when you get involved as a parent.
That's right. Yeah. Well, he's becoming an individual. He's at that age where he's like, yeah, listen, I'm my own person, Dad. Like, get out of my space, you know?
Uh-huh.
And he's a lot like me. So there's times we butt heads hardcore.
Yeah.
And it's devastating to me, of course, when that happens. I'm like, God, son, if you knew how much I loved you. You know, he doesn't care. You know, you just take me off this day, Dad. So just back off. But yeah, this is a big problem. So yeah, I'm just really passionate about it. I feel it's part of my calling in life, to be an encourager, to be an upbuilder, to be someone who can bring genuine value to people's lives, to actually help them. I think there's a lot of people that just talk real lofty, that don't get down into the bones of everyday life to really help people become better human beings. Yeah. And so, yeah, this fatherhood epidemic or fatherlessness epidemic is devastating to our culture. It's devastating human flourishing. And so I'm just deeply passionate about it.
Yeah, no,
I love that.
I agree with that so much. And it's one of the things that I see as well. So I'm a former teacher and principal, and the kids that had dads in homes did better in school. Like that was something that I specifically noticed. I mean, you listen to somebody like Larry Elder gets in there and talks about like the problem with, you know, in minority communities and Black communities is fatherlessness. That is the number one problem that they are facing. And just having a dad in the home, like even just having a dad, I can't remember the statistic, but just even if the dad isn't doing much, having him there like has a drastic improvement on how the outcomes for children and stuff like that. And so
in all areas, physically, emotionally, spiritually, academically, it improves. And it's really remarkable that the cultural narrative is so against the thing that can bring about the most flourishing in our times. Like most societal ills that we experience in America are due to fatherlessness. Yeah. And it's like we're afraid to say that. And I get it. And I get it. We want to prop up motherhood too. Well, of course, like they're both equally important, but we need both.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need that nurture. We need mom. We need dad. Like this is by nature designed to function properly like this. And kids flourish in those environments. This is not rocket science. But unfortunately, we've muddied the waters and made it. Well,
there's been a confusion in the roles too. Like when that started many years ago, I was like, no, there is roles, you know, that need to happen. Like I'm okay if my husband is the protector of our home, you know, and I'm okay to be the you know, I would say God gave us those roles and those qualities and talents and abilities for a reason. And like you're saying, when society muddies those, we're seeing the results of that.
Chaos ensues.
Yes. So,
and I think we're in a time where we get to be bold in that and say, we believe in and it's so funny to me. They want to make it out like it's not this equality of personhood. It's like, no, like there's functions, like we're different.
Yeah.
And we have different opportunities to serve our families in different ways and bring what we are gifted in and what we have to the table to bring about flourishing in our families and our communities. And I think it's time that more people speak out on that and unashamedly, and not being like rude to people about it. It's like, hey man, my wife doesn't want me to cower when evil comes. My wife would actually prefer I step in and do something about it.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I kind of want to be that guy. So sorry, I don't want to be. It's like I don't want to be the guy when crap's hitting the fan in the situation that's got his phone out, like filming people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, this is cowardice. It's strange that we've accepted this behavior. But you're right. I mean, we have roles to play, and I want to be faithful in that.
Yeah,
absolutely. So we have 5 kids of our own. I had 4 daughters, and then our fifth child is a boy. And so, but there is a definite difference in how he interacts. I mean, when he was 2, like the way my girls would run up and give me hugs, be like, "Daddy, I'm so glad you're home." He runs up and pushes me and tries to tackle me. Right? It's just a very different thing that would happen. And so, we men and women are not the same biologically. Like we have differences. We have those things. And one of the things that as a teacher that I had to explain even to another teacher is, she had a kid in there draw like a little stick figure war scene, and she got bothered by that. I'm like, no, that's like, no, I did that as a kid. Like, that's a normal thing. Like, men have, these violent fantasies where they are the heroes of the story, right? Yeah. Like, that is a normal thing. And because our role is to, as you said, to be those protectors when evil comes at the door. Yeah, that is our job, is to go to that evil and stand there and be like, no, you're not coming in here. This is a safe place for my family to be who God wanted them to be. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there was a video that went viral that I thought was really interesting. I cannot remember what it was, but they were asking women if I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but they were asking them basically if danger came and death was imminent, and you had your male partner there with you, who do you want to survive? And they're like, well, I want to survive. And all the women were like, I want to survive. And of course they would say this. Yeah. And they asked every man, they asked these people separately, so they didn't know their answers. Every single man was like, man, I'm the first to go. I'm standing in the gap, and I'm going to be killed. And people don't understand this. And like, I'm an educated man, I'm a grown man, and people don't understand that I'm willing to die for my family. Yeah, there's a real conviction there, and you're right. What you said about those childhood violent fantasies. I love how you worded that. You know how many times I took a machete to a tree as an 8-year-old, and how many things I cut down and broke, and I mean, it was wild. The things that we jump out of things, we do so many dangerous things without even thinking about the potential consequences of those actions. My daughter would never do these things. Yeah. Well, and part of that too, I just remember for myself as a kid, like, I was pretending to be, the army guy that went behind enemy lines to save my buddies, or, that's right. The knight, like I would pretend I was the guy fighting the dragon to save the princess, or whatever. Like, all those things, like it is a very important role that God gave to men to be a protector of society. There's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing going about there. And I agree with you. Fathers are the sheepdogs, right? Yeah. That is our role, is to keep the wolves at bay.
That's right. But you're right. You're absolutely right.
So a funny story when you guys are talking the difference between boys and girls. So one day, our kids, they jump on the tramp a lot, right? When the girls are out there, it's more gentle, and they're doing bum wars, and well, one day our little boy and all his buddies were out on the tramp, and I looked out and they all had their shirts off, and it was like WWF out on the tramp.
That's right.
Like, John, is that like, should I be concerned? John's like, nope, they'll be, but it was like all these, like 2 or 3 neighbor boys and our boy are out just beating each other up on the tramp, so with their shirts off. So it was
that is a thing. We still, even at 40, are tempted to rip our shirts off and do crazy things in the backyard. With our kids, you tie things on your heads.
I might be concerned if John and a bunch of men in the neighborhood start doing that.
That could be something you could do in your community, John.
Yeah, there we go. With the amount of frost on the ground, I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah, it's still a little warmer down here. It's not too bad, so we can still get away with it.
That's so funny.
Okay. You've talked a little bit about this, but I want to hear more about you have just recently started Brotherhood of Valor. So if you can tell us a little more about that, I would love to.
Yeah. So this is more of a kind of a passion idea. So one of my good friends, I guess my best buddy, I work with, I even own a company with him. He and I, he's 2 years older than me. We both have families. We both hunt together. We're really good buddies. And we talk about these things all the time. And so we kind of came up with this idea. We've both been in corporate environments and retail environments, banking environments. We do a lot of training, development, equipping. And we just kind of got that conviction over time as we talk about fatherhood, as we talk about fatherlessness, foster care, all these things, our community that we live in. How can we serve young men better, and even older men? I mean guys in their 50s that are terribly out of shape, unhappy. They want guidance and direction, even if it's coming from a 40-year-old or a 41-year-old. I've seen older men. I've got guys on Twitter that I interact with a lot that are just really good guys in their mid-20s and late 20s that are coaching 60-year-olds. That's how bad the dynamic is right now. I'm glad that my 28-year-old buddy is getting paid to coach and help a 6-year-old, but I'm really sad that a 60-year-old is going to a 28-year-old for help.
Yeah.
The other way around, and he should be pouring his wisdom out on the world. So there's everything's just so upside down right now, and so our passion in Brotherhood of Valor is to bring back masculinity and purpose, centered in that we're Christian men. There's a gentleness to us that we're not talking about like this rugged edge to us, but we will. I mean, I've been in plenty of fights and stuff through my martial arts things, and we talk about those things. I think it's important to still talk about those things, but we really want to get into like personal development, personal responsibility, personal accountability, building frameworks out for men to actually become better. Because men are prone to this type of direction. They need challenges, they need ideas, they need other men to come in and say, listen, man, like this isn't working. You really need to fix this. And for some reason, men tend to respond very well to that. And so I always kind of roll my eyes and shake my head when I hear preachers and pastors talk negatively, like about Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan. And I get it, and even Andrew Tate. And I understand the whole Andrew Tate controversy stuff, but the question really should be, why are men drawn to these guys? It's not just like, let's crap on these guys for going to these men for direction and help. You should be asking yourself, why are they going to these men for direction and help? There's a void. There's a massive void that these men are filling, that good Christian men should be filling that void. You don't like Andrew Tate's message? Fine. Give a better message. But you got to speak to men directly. And we've gotten into this weird habit, especially in local churches, that we don't want to challenge guys anymore. It's like, well, we lament that they don't show up to church, but then we don't give them anything to like fight for. And we think that it's just, and I get it. Like, well, we're trying to preserve the gospel message. We don't want them to earn their salvation. I'm like, okay, that's clear, but that doesn't mean they don't do anything. So like, you still got to live out your life, man. Like there's still Sunday through Saturday of work to be done. There's still guys struggling deeply in corporate environments. There are guys that are encountering untold evil in the marketplace, and they're trying to raise families. They're trying to be good husbands. They're trying to be good employees or employers. We never talk about these things. Well, these Jordan Peterson and these guys are talking about those things. So millions of men are just flocking to them. And instead of giving a better message and using that and tapping into that, we're just kind of throwing our hands in the air like, why aren't men in the church? It's like, man, what a dumb question. It really does bother me deeply. And so Brotherhood of Valor is kind of birthed out of that idea. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, and I don't know how many guys will help. I just know that we want to help guys, but it does. It costs money. My time's not free, just like nobody else's time is free.
Right.
But we want to bring insane value to these young men, to these older men, middle-aged men, whoever. We have training programs that my friend and I have built to really help guys. We want to have one-on-one interactions with these guys. We want to have retreats with these guys. We do a lot of hunting and fishing and outdoor stuff. And so we would love to bring guys into Arkansas, take them out, shoot ski, and really just get to know these guys on a deeper level. So we have a lot of ideas with that, but we're in the infancy stages of it. Valor is a beautiful word. I use this word intentionally. Some people think it's cheesy. I don't care. Fatherhood Ninja is cheesy. But these are lost words that have deep meaning. Absolutely. And unfortunately, we live in a culture that doesn't seem to like to define terms very well. And I like to. I think it's really important that we understand things. And words like bravery, courage, heroism, boldness, virtue. I mean, do you hear people talk about virtue anymore? Honor, civility, dignity, purpose, respect, integrity. These are big words that we're going to be bringing to the forefront in this brotherhood. But it's no secret that men thrive in brotherhoods. This is no secret. This is ancient wisdom. I mean, ancient wisdom. There is. If we have anything tested and proven, it's brotherhood. How important this is for men, and the unfortunate reality, especially guys my age. Most guys my age don't have good friendships. They just don't have really good friends. And if they do, it's just usually like a drinking buddy or something they do on the weekend from time to time. They don't have those deep long lasting, like I've got your back, I have a shield type friendship.
Yeah.
That is a detriment to men, and it is killing men left and right. And this is why the suicide stats are so staggering. It's like, man, why would a man who has a wife and kids kill himself? Like, people aren't asking the right questions.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't have any friends. He doesn't have any brotherhood. He feels very empty. He feels very purposeless. He's so like caught up in the culture currently that he's just lost and aimless, and he feels like he has nothing to live for. This is really, I mean, devastatingly sad stuff. Brotherhood of Valor that's the direction we're going in, is to kind of fill that deep void. I know a lot of guys are doing brotherhoods and stuff right now, so I don't know if it'll catch on, but as I keep growing the Twitter page and getting a bigger audience, I hope that, we can influence more and more people in those directions. So, social media is powerful if you use it, the right way. And Twitter's become an interesting little leverage point for me and I don't use it as much as I like, because I am busy, but it is an outlet and a piece. I've met a lot of great guys on Twitter. I met you on Twitter, man.
Yeah, there we go.
That's how this works.
Absolutely.
I've made partnerships on Twitter. I've hired guys off Twitter to work for my company. I mean, it's just been a unique outlet. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. No, well, awesome. And I think there is a starvation for truth. If you want to, and you guys are speaking truth. I think people, when we talked about all these last things, people are afraid. There's a lack of courage that if they say something, they'll be, martyr, they'll be
canceled,
they'll be whatever. But I do think the majority do want truth.
Yeah.
And we need more people to stand up and say the truth, just like my husband, he saw you and believes in your message, right, on Twitter, and it's a major problem where we need to actually know this is the definition and this is the truth. Because really all of us have the light of Christ and are seeking that truth.
There's that quote, I can't remember who said it, but in the kingdom of lies, truth is treason, right? Yeah. And it feels like that's where we're at right now in society, right? Is where we have all these things where, I mean, people are unwilling to define what a man or a woman is, right? All my kids, when they were 2, they knew who was a man and who was a woman. Like they could do that at that age. And some basic facts like that are being tossed aside, saying like this doesn't matter. But it does. It so matters so deeply.
Demeaning to those roles.
Absolutely.
So just the attack, I'm not a father, but the attack on womanhood is very demeaning.
And being a mom.
Yeah.
Like
I'm not a birthing person. So.
That's strange name.
But
strange name.
Yeah. But
better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is a thing where like a lot of times, like even you'll do this. I'm just a mom. You're not just a mom. Like that is a very important God-given role. Yeah. I mean, the second person created was a mother, right? It was Eve. We had Adam and then Eve, and it was one right after the other. It wasn't like Adam was hanging out for years and years, hanging out, wondering what to do. It's
and
the father and the mother,
I think,
working together.
It showed, it wasn't good for man to be alone.
Exactly.
So right.
We needed each other.
That's beautiful. And it's powerful. It's a powerful antidote, to the chaos that we see. But you're right. That fear. And one of the things I think too is that even in the Brotherhood of Valor that we want to teach guys is how to make money. How to really go out and use side hustles and use opportunities to build streams of income, because you're right. If you're afraid to speak truth because you're going to lose livelihood, I get that's a real fear. Mm-hmm. You want to feed your family. I understand all that, but you've got to be creative in your approach to the world that God's birthed us in. Yeah. We're lucky enough to be in the United States, where there is remarkable opportunity to build wealth and to build future wealth. We talk a lot about legacy. We talk a lot about a good man leaving an inheritance to his children's children. Yeah. There are financial aspects to that. There's more to it than that. Obviously, we want to leave the mark of fatherhood and motherhood on our children. But also you want to be smart with the resources God has given you, to build out so that you don't have to be afraid to lose something, in the end, because I'm a fighter by nature. My mind, my heart, my design. I was an atheist till I was 26. I became a Christian. I became a Christian at 27 years old. I'm 41 now, but I've always had that fighter nature in me. And I think, my gosh, man, like, okay, if you can me in this position, I'll go create another one. Like, what are you talking about? A cancer?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Yeah.
I'm still alive. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still talking, I'm still breathing.
Yeah.
Like, what does this even mean? It's so ridiculous. It's beyond childish. And we've got to be able to stand in that and not be ashamed and afraid to counter lies with truth. And these are big things that especially men today, man, they're being browbeat into silence. I find that just really odd that we've complied so well to it.
Right. My epiphany that I had the other day was nowhere in the scriptures does it say that God sent us here to be comfortable.
Right.
He sent us here to learn, to have trials, to grow, become who he wants us to be. And you can't do that playing Xbox for 40 hours a week.
That's what makes life exciting.
Absolutely.
For some reason, we've interpreted disagreements or, hey, I don't agree with maybe certain policies or ideas as hatred. I find that just so fascinating because it's not that. I mean, listen, we do love people. I know I do. My family does. I'm literally raising other people's children off and on. Like, we want to serve our communities. We want to be a blessing and an encouragement. I don't want to be a cynic. I don't want to be a discourager. But there are things that have to be talked about. It's like, man, if you ask me my opinion about something, I mean, you're going to get it. And you may not like that. But it just seems like we've created such an identity crisis in humanity that any disagreement is an attack on you as an individual person and you hate me. And it's like, no, like, maybe we should really talk about some of these policies and ideas because some of them are really, really, really dangerous. And really hurtful to humanity as a whole. And you may not agree with that, and that's okay. But there's going to be times where, man, things clash. And I think cooler heads, I think it's imperative that we keep cool heads and have self-control, but not cower to the disagreement. I think that's where the cowardice comes in. It's like, man, you believe what you believe, stand in that. Don't like lose your temper, even if someone's screaming in your face. You just speak to that directly. Don't follow all the trails. Stay on point. And this is, we'll go into the homeschool conversation stuff. This is why you teach logic. This is why you teach grammar and rhetoric and the dialectic phases of growth, because it enables you to actually really see argumentation and speak to it. And what you'll notice about our culture is they'll say something and then 50 million things come out of that. And they want you to go on all these rabbit trails and it makes you look bad. It's like, no, we're going to stick to the point.
But hey, going back, I want to hear, this is kind of a side note. I thought it was interesting that you said you were an atheist.
It's a long story. So what do you want to know about it?
I guess what changed your heart? I don't know. Like, I always find those interesting stories, so.
I wasn't raised in the church. My mother and father were not. I had a mom and dad. I had a great upbringing, had a great family. My dad worked a lot. He wasn't as involved as my mom was, but I always had an understanding that, he was doing the best he could to provide for his family, and he did. My mom also started little businesses that she would do from home. She was incredible. But we were not spiritual people or religious people, as they say. So I get into high school, and I spent a stint. My dad was in oil, so we lived overseas a little bit. I lived in the United Arab Emirates and moved back to southern Oklahoma, where I spent most of my time was in southern Oklahoma. So pretty Christianized, environment, and I had buddies always inviting to youth groups and stuff, and so I encountered things, but I just wasn't sold on it. And I think my main objection was how people lived. And what I mean by that, and I'm not in the non-hypocritical way. I mean, I've made terrible mistakes as an atheist and as a Christian, but just that seriousness about living and how we live in the everyday stuff. Everything felt so ethereal, like up in space, and didn't really touch into reality. And I didn't like that about a lot of the preaching and teaching that I encountered. It was always up here. It was real lofty. I'm like, I'm down here. I'm like in the guts of life. I'm in school. This is reality. Like, how does this affect reality? And so my wife was a Christian. We dated in high school and got into college, and college was like my demise. I went to Oklahoma State University, and encountered some incredible professors that I really, really love and love to this day, that were like crazy atheistic and liberal in the classic sense, not in how we define liberal today. And so I was really challenged by a lot of ideas when I went to college. But again, I'm a fighter by nature, so I was always like and I don't mean this politically when I say conservative. I've always been a conservative guy. I don't like some of these ideas, so I would box with these, verbally box with these professors, and built some good friendships. But it really killed any idea of faith in my life. And so by the time I was 21, 22, I wasn't even sure that Jesus was even a real person at that point. I didn't, and I say it nonchalantly now, and I'll work to not get emotional as we progress, but I didn't even care. I just was like, I got to get a job. It's time to work. It's like, we're in life. Like, I don't really care about this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess when as things progressed, our marriage was a bit rocky in the beginning, primarily because, again, she wanted to be involved in church and in different things. Long story short, I didn't. That creates problems in a marriage. Yeah. We're on different spheres of worldview. But it creates problems because, it just does. And I'll spare you all those details. But what ended up happening is I came to a pretty good head with my life of kind of like Brotherhood of Valor. Just what's the purpose of all this? I went to college. I worked real hard, did real well in school, and didn't do very well in high school and junior high. That's another story. Well, in college, was working real hard. Got into retail, which was a terrible idea. Working 60-hour weeks, which is also not good on a marriage.
Yeah.
Especially during the holidays when that's all you do is work. And so, it just got to a place where I started asking a lot more fundamental questions about life, and started reading a lot of classics, a lot of novels, a lot of ancient wisdom, a lot of Stoics. I still love the Stoics to this day. I think they steal from the Christian worldview and the Old Testament, Old Covenant worldview stuff too, but it's still great stuff. And helpful things. But man, I decided to kind of turn to the scriptures for some guidance, and not that I wanted to believe, but it became one of those deals. I was reading all the classics, and one of the classics I didn't read was the scriptures. And so once I started diving into that, things started feeling a lot different. Everything came alive. The lights began to come on. The words, I'd read all this literature, I'd read all these classic novels, and loved every bit of that, but this was profoundly different. And things began to really shift in my mind and my heart. And it was like I came alive, and my life completely changed. I get to passages that in the New Testament of Christ's redemptive work and what he did on the cross, what he did in his resurrection. I'm like, but nobody rises from the dead. I had all my fundamental problems with these things, but all of a sudden, man, the only way I know how to explain it is the Spirit of God worked in my life, opened me up to truth. I was finally in a position to receive it. And at 27, man, I just gave up. I threw the towel in and said, okay, you win. This stuff is freaky real and is life-changing and life-altering. I don't know what to do with it, but I'm in. And I think that I need to, I want to be in, and I want to learn more, I want to grow more, and I want to impact the world in a positive way. So God brought deep purpose and deep meaning into my life. But that changed everything. That changed the dynamic. Clearly, it changed the dynamic in my home. My wife was pregnant at the time all this was going on, and my son was born. That was you talk about a life altering, especially as you're learning about Christianity and learning about the birth of Christ, and then you birth a son. It was just too. I was like, Lord, that's just too profound, And in my life, here's this baby, and you came as a baby. It was just so wild. All the things, all the pieces came into place. But the whole conviction of sin, that wasn't a problem for me in my early 20s. But when you start studying the scriptures, when you start opening your heart up and your mind up, and that conviction just got almost unbearable of the evil of my own life, the evil of my own actions, some of the things I had done, even though they weren't like legally throw me in jail type stuff, but it was like, man, I have sinned against a holy God. I have rebelled against pure, glorious good.
Yeah.
And I have let all of that slide for just dirt. It's just like eating dirt my whole life. And so, yeah, to be cleansed and to like confess your sins and to repent of your sins and like to feel the washing of that regeneration was pretty wild. And so people always ask, like, oh, did you just kind of like come to an intellectual conclusion? It's like, no, none of this makes sense.
No.
Yeah.
Like, Christ is coming back on a white horse in a cloud of fire. Like, come on, like this is crazy. A man rose from the dead, conquering sin, Satan, and death. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, this stuff is wild, but I believe it with all of my heart.
Right.
Which is so cool. And they're like, you're an idiot. You're not an intellectual. I was like, I'm both. I guess I'm both. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is what happened to me. When you encounter God like this, in his presence and power comes to you, man. Like it's real. It's really a change, and it's a real presence, and it's a real guidance. He's a real help, and he's a real father, which goes back to our fatherhood comments. Like God as Father was a really remarkable revelation for me. And especially now as it relates to fatherlessness, that God can be our Father. I find that really interesting in today's day, that God reveals himself this way. But yeah, it came through the Word. That's where I encountered the Lord. So ironically.
No.
Who would have thought?
That's awesome.
I don't think we all. It's the Lord who's in charge, right?
That's right.
Yeah. This has been part 1 of our conversation with Rob Wood, the Fatherhood Ninja. Join us next week when we talk more about education and homeschooling. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Diamond Education Podcast.
You can connect with us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook
At Diamond Education, DIMOND, or on our website, diamonded.com.